The New York federal case against Grammy-winning artist R. Kelly is expected to be the first of the 4 pending cases against him to go to trial. This week, the attorneys are creating a juror questionnaire, and one question clearly stands out. Have you, a family member, a close friend, or spouse or partner ever had a sexually transmitted disease? It's a question the defense wants in. Prosecutors are objecting, saying the question, among other reasons, is, quote, unnecessarily intrusive. Mike Leonard represents Robert Kelly.
There's going to be a whole panoply of evidence presented by the state about Mr. Kelly, about his health condition, about whether he allegedly transmitted an STD to somebody else, whether they knew that he had an STD. So clearly, it's evidence that the government's going to rely upon in its case in chief. Right. So it would make obvious sense to ask the jurors questions about their familiarity with it, whether they've experienced themselves, whether they've been a victim of that type of STD, et cetera, et cetera. So to us, it's a no-brainer. It's clearly relevant in light of the evidence that the government wants to put on in this case.
Do you think jurors will be honest with you?
Well, that's an interesting question. The good thing about a juror questionnaire is it's a piece of paper that you're not sitting there or standing up in front of a whole room of people in the voir dire where you have to be worried about that.
Kelly is accused of having sex with underage girls. The New York case alleges that he also gave a girl herpes without disclosing that he had the disease. In 2008, Kelly was found not guilty in a child pornography case. The latest charges surfaced following the Lifetime documentary series Surviving R. Kelly, which featured alleged victims' stories of manipulation and abuse.
I would give my life for my justice and any other woman you validated. I will not go away. I will not be quiet.
R. Kelly has consistently denied any wrongdoing, saying any relationships were consensual and the girls were all of the age of consent. He lost his composure during a 2019 interview with Gayle King on CBS This Morning.
I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave out 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career.
Right now, you're obviously getting a one-sided take on R. Kelly. You're getting snippets of video that are produced and packaged in a way to make him the worst possible. And you got to remember, we're talking about allegations that in some instances are 20 to 25 years ago by persons who have already testified and or given statements under oath saying something that's absolutely contrary to what they're saying today.
And STDs, not the only diseases that the defense team for R. Kelly is concerned with right now. They're also concerned about the coronavirus, and that as a basis to try to get him released on bail because he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. He's getting ready for his trial, but still is presumed innocent. But here's some of the requests that were made today for bail, saying that there are at least 6 known and confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 amongst the population where Mr. Kelly is being detained. Then perhaps the best argument yet is not only is he on virtual lockdown, Mr. Kelly now gets 1 phone call per week. His attorneys cannot visit him. So if you got a trial coming up, everyone's in lockdown, you can't prepare, you can't visit your client. Will this trial actually happen, or does something else have to happen, like releasing R. Kelly so he can interact with his attorneys? Let's bring in Steve Greenberg, lead attorney for R. Kelly, joining us tonight. Great to see you, Steve.
How you doing,
Let's start first with the COVID. Good. Before we get to STDs and all that, let's talk about COVID tonight. You can only speak once a week if you want to on the phone with your client. Do you talk to him on the phone, or are you concerned that people are listening?
No, he only gets 1 phone call a week, which means he can only make 1 outgoing phone call a week. They're definitely listening to that call. Calls that you have with an inmate are not privileged if they're made over the regular jail phone system. I was able to arrange a telephone call with him yesterday through the jail, but that's hard to do. Every attorney who's got a client in that jail wants to arrange those phone calls. So those phone calls are probably once every week to 10 days. That's on a private line that nobody's supposed to be listening in on. But you can't really accomplish anything on that call. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of pictures of discovery already that we've received on this case. We need to sit down with him. We need to read these materials to him because he can't read them to himself. He can't read, he can't write. We need to talk to him about these materials. Frankly, I'm not going to go in the jail, even if they told me I could go in the jail, because it's not a safe environment. You can't socially distance. If there's any hope of this case going to trial this year, he needs to get out.
All right, let's talk about some of the charges here, because they're alleging that your client is part of a criminal enterprise, right? And when I think of criminal enterprise, I think of, the mob and those types of cases. Other members of the alleged enterprise testify against the person they're going after. Now, they're saying R. Kelly's the leader of this criminal enterprise. Are any members of his entourage supposed to be testifying against your client?
Well, I'm sure they'll find people to testify against him who worked for him over the years. We don't have, the way it works in federal court, they don't just dump on you at the beginning all of the investigative reports. They actually don't give them to you until you're much closer to trial. So we don't have interview reports with witnesses for virtually anyone they're going to call as a witness. I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is that I've never seen a RICO indictment where just a single person is indicted and they say this is an enterprise. They're essentially saying that his music career was a criminal enterprise, which to us is preposterous.
Well, let me walk through, because I've got the indictment in front of me, and they allege certain factual scenarios here describing what the enterprise is doing. And let me go through just a few of them to see if you will concede that, oh yeah, this actually took place. Members of the enterprise on Kelly's behalf invited women and girls backstage. Would that happen?
Sure. That happens for every band.
Okay. When Kelly identified a woman or girl that he wanted to see again, would he give his contact information to that woman or obtain her contact information?
Are you asking me when he found a woman that he liked, would he exchange telephone numbers? I mean, let's break this down to what it really is. They're saying
wait, not only that.
Enterprise.
Wait. Would he communicate with these women by telephone calls, text messages, iMessages, and FaceTime?
I'm sure he did. Don't you? Do you talk
I'm getting
to your
admissions
wife by text
tonight.
Message? What?
Exactly. Here's my point. What they described as I was reading it sounded like the life of a rock star. Okay, but the part where it diverts from the life of the rock star to criminal, the way I'm reading this, is underage girls. That is part of the allegations, that he is engaging in sexual contact and acts with underage girls. Are you contesting the age of these women? Isn't that like you're either underage or you're not?
Well, you are either underage or you're not, but the question becomes, do people know that? So, for instance, one of the charges here in Chicago, and I can't speak to the federal in New York yet on that issue because I don't have the discovery. I could tell you that ever since Robert had his case back, more than a decade ago, he was extraordinarily careful to make sure that girls were not underage. Did he like younger women? Yes. 20, 21, 22, 19, sometimes 18, I'm sure. But I can tell you that questions were asked and answers were given. So I know one of the people here in the indictment in Chicago in state court has very publicly said, I lied to him about my age, and my mother lied to him about my age. I think the same thing is true with respect to at least one of the girls who's involved in the New York federal case, where her parents were lying about her age and she was lying about her age.
All right, how about this one? And this really goes to the Surviving R. Kelly documentary, and this is one of the things that I think we saw there. And the allegation is that he isolates women and girls from friends and family, making them dependent on Kelly your client for their financial well-being. Was that happening? Was he isolating these women and keeping them away from their family? Because that was a big part of the
No,
documentary.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. What he was doing was buying them Gucci and Prada and nice things like that they weren't getting when they were living with their families. They lived a much better lifestyle. They were on limousines and going out for fancy dinners. So I don't know what they're complaining about. One of the things that was on that documentary was you had to, when you wanted to urinate, you had to ask permission, that people would pee in buckets, that they were chained to the floors, all that. There's no evidence of any of that. I've been to his condo many times. They've searched his condo. They've searched his studio. They haven't uncovered a shred of evidence that kind of stuff ever went on.
All right. Now, you've got the transmission of the disease. We know about that's another one of the allegations. Also producing pornography. So
it's actually not
pictures,
the transmission.
Are there
it's
videos?
Not the transmission of the disease, Vinny. It's not the transmission. The New York statute, and we've attacked this in a motion, says that anybody who has a sexually transmitted disease cannot have sexual intercourse. You and I have talked about this. It doesn't matter whether you gave it to somebody, you didn't give it to somebody, you warned them about it, you didn't warn them about it. None of that is in the statute. It is a wholesale prohibition on sexual intercourse for anyone who has any STD.
All right. How about videos and pictures? Underage girls, producing child pornography. Those are part of the allegations here. I mean, the videos either exist or they don't exist, right?
That's right. And if they exist, I'd like to see them. I haven't seen them.
All right. And this it was supposed to happen in July, right? And
right, it was supposed to happen. We were actually supposed to, in May, I believe, on May 18th, distribute the juror questionnaires that you talked about earlier. There's zero chance that you're going to get, 300, 400, 500 people to gather in a room. Hopefully, we can do it. Now we're going to do it September 14th. We're going to distribute those questionnaires so far closer to the trial date, to the actual trial date. And hopefully by waiting that long, we can proceed to trial in September. But who knows if we're going to be able to get 12 people to sit next to each other in a courtroom, to go in a jury room and deliberate. Maybe other accommodations will have to be made. We'll have to get a bigger courtroom and the jurors will have to sit, 3 seats apart.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that trials are going to look a lot different once we get back to work here. Steve Greenberg, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Stay well.